Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Traffic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Thursday, the 14th of September. So quite a different day today. We will go through those themes with you in just a second. Risk disclaimer first, everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. So yes, I've been talking about this week how just the market has been fairly inconsistent. We also have just a huge week in terms of events, right? We had the CPI yesterday, the PPI today, retail sales, and what else do we have? Initial jobless claims. There was also the ECB today, which they had their central bank meeting. We don't have ours till the 20th, so we have a little bit of time before that happens. But yeah, I mean, so we have that, and then of course we've got quadruple, well, not quadruple witching. That's what it's notoriously called, but it's really triple witching. But another one that's not mentioned in there too is the quarterly rebalance for the S&P and Nasdaq, which I think are shaking things up a little bit. And if you look at some of today's outperformers, that could have been the reason for that, because that rebalancing does take place on the close tomorrow. But institutions, portfolio trading desks, they do all of that. They trade ahead, right? They know what the index rebalance is going to be, and they don't just sit on that until Friday and trade it on the close. They pre-position for that type of thing too. So I think things get kind of shaken out quite a bit. So, that makes it, when you have all these events that, that are corresponding, some people like to have a reason for everything, right? They like to know, oh, this is why this happened, or that's, and I think if you're following the price action, right, I mean, that's telling you, that's enough to kind of deal with, rather than to say, oh my God, retail sales went up, that means the market should go down because it's stronger economic data, right? Today, the market just did not want to really break down today, even after what looked like kind of some bad news to me anyway, on the cover. So, that's why I always look at indicators and some things that are going on under the hood, but it's always the price action that's most important. So, in any event, here were the numbers, and this is what I went over yesterday after the CPI report, which again is also more important than these data points, is what the Fed may be doing. And it doesn't look like for this 20th of September, for this next Fed meeting, like right now, Fed fund futures are showing basically that they're not raising interest rates next week. So that's I think that's revealing. And could be that there's one, just as I said in yesterday's video, it could be there's one that comes in September if the data continues to run really hot. But that's a long ways away, and we'll watch as that develops. What I'm looking at, by the way, is right here, these first two levels. So there's no change there. Are things completely perfect, in regards to what's going on in the market? No, because the first thing that I'll talk about before we get to the price action for today is the move in the dollar, right? And a lot of this was spurred, if you look at the euro today, moving down and kind of trading out of this range. So yeah, I mean, this is not a good thing. So, we'll get a little bit into the strategy, but the dollar continuing to move higher like this, it's just more of a headwind. If we look at bonds too, which are, these are the macro things that I get through always in the beginning of these end of day videos. This is hanging on for dear life here, right around the bottom of value. So these are not good looking pictures here. So let me get to the price action for the day, and then as always, I get to my conclusion and some strategy towards the end of the video. But we did have really strong breadth today. Now again, that could be that could have to do with monthly options expiration, and perhaps some of that rebalancing too. But the breadth was really strong today, and even on the open, it was super strong. And it kind of came back a little bit. I mentioned the comment. I think some people took offense to it. I didn't mean to make to say offense to it, but I said, one of the And you can see the market's still doing okay here in the after hours, close, right around the highs of the session S&P futures. But the first hour of the trading day, when I started working on Wall Street, I used to hear this all the time, that the first hour of the trading day is amateur hour, right? Everybody's looking, scrambling in the first hour. Yes, there's a lot of volume, but things kind of settle down, and you can sometimes find that direction after the hour. And again, that's just it's an expression that means that sometimes if you wait a little bit past that first hour, unless we're in a raging bull market where things move up and then they keep on going and they keep trending, and there's a lot of trades that can happen in the first half hour of the day. But this is not a raging bull market right now. What we've seen over the last 2 months, and the market does change. I don't associate long-term bull market, short, bear markets and so forth. Just basically, I'm just talking about how the price action has been acting over the last month or so. And, it's been tough. It's been really tough price action. But yeah, you could look here and the first half hour of the day, if you look at, I think it was even more so in the Qs. Here's the Qs on the open, right? So this is what I'm referring to, is just like everybody rushing in to do certain things, but you let the market settle down a little bit, and the direction for the day sometimes reveals itself once you get through that hour. But yes, that's an old expression I used to hear all the time, is that the first hour is amateur hour. It's not meant to offend anybody. It's just one of those expressions, because I find opportunity. It's not to say that there's not opportunities in the first hour, but just sometimes things kind of reveal themselves as they go. So I mentioned strong breath for the day. Right. We do have an indicator that looks at that, or a study. But yeah, I mean, if you look on the bottom of your screen, right, you could see how strong the breath was, and it was consistent all day long. So, that's more of what we need to see, I think, in any event. And it's kind of funny when you talk about strong breath, because if you're only trading 3 or 4 stocks, then you don't really care too much about breadth. But if you're trading other areas of the market and you have somewhat of a diverse portfolio, then yes, you want stronger breadth. I always find that interesting, right? Because some of the people who say, "Oh, geez, we just have to see better breadth," and then they're only trading the 3 or 4 stocks, right? You shouldn't really care about that much if only like the FANG stocks, or for example, are the names that you trade. Regardless, small caps were up 1.4%. I mean, talk about an area that's been, for the most part in these end of day videos, I've been just really saying how poor the chart looks of IWM. So it gives us a little bit of breathing room, right? We've talked about how this could be a head and shoulders pattern, but you never know a head and shoulders pattern until it actually breaks the neckline. Or in this case, I would say this 180-196 bottom of value for the month. Things will look like you could see possible head and shoulders all over the place. People love to anticipate this type of stuff, but really, you don't want to be trying to trade a head and shoulders or an inverted head and shoulders until the price action actually breaks the neckline. Some people like to try to anticipate double bottoms and double tops too, but really it's not one of those until the pattern starts to really reveal itself. But still, would I go long this chart here? No. But overall, like I said, it gives the small caps a little bit of breathing room from the possible breakdown. So what did do really well today? Solar was up today. I mean, that's something that we really haven't seen too much talk about. Could be associated with that index rebalancing, because the names that have been underperforming sometimes have to get bought. So solar was up 2.6%. The metals and mining were up 3.4%. Steel was up 3.2%. Retail stocks were up. Again, not all of them, but some of those have been some of the underperforming areas of the market. And what's really interesting is if you go down this list, now I have this always sorted by percentage change from the open. But if you look at this column, which is how they performed for the day, the only thing that didn't turn green on for the day, or that didn't close green, I should say, was the biotech ETF. So again, I don't know if there's any if there's anything to that, but at one point, just like right before the close, I was saying, wow, there isn't anything that's red on my watch list today. So again, you go back to that theme of stronger breath. All right, so let's go through a couple stocks, and then I will talk about in the conclusion, I will talk about some strategy. But I'll go through a couple names that I'm long. I've been waiting and waiting for Google to kind of break higher here. It's been very slow. But in this market where where it's been tough, I don't mind something that's taking its time right now and going and possibly trying to resolve higher like this. Where do I think this could be going? I did tweet this out earlier in the day, but my price target is 141.81. I know that's only $3 up. But you have to understand with this Google, it does give you chances to add, because you look at this and you're like, oh, geez, that's such a small percentage move. Like, why am I in this for that small of a move? Well, because it keeps giving me opportunity, to these checkbacks to the 20-day moving average, give you a little bit more bumper room. So, right now, I actually like, that would be fine if it goes to 141 right away. But if it doesn't, and if it takes its time, it's giving me those opportunities to add a little bit here and there on the down days, right? As long as it's holding trend, right? Amazon was kind of interesting today because it was up on a broker upgrade in the overnight session, right? It made this little bit higher, and then all of a sudden, once we got to the open, here's what I'm referring to in terms of the first hour, right? You think, oh, geez, Amazon has this nice. I think it was Morgan Stanley who put them as a top idea, and the stock immediately sells off on the open. But where did it, where did it find support? Right at the bottom of the value area for the day. So that gives me some edge, and right, you're going to see so right at that time at 10 o'clock at 143.80 is where I added. I waited a little bit to make sure that it bounced. Right, is that 143? I guess I caught it a little bit late. 143.80. So right in here, right a little bit off. So I didn't buy that right at the bottom of value. So I was a little bit late on that, but that worked pretty nicely, right? For a little bit more of a scalp. I mentioned Google. I'll also mention Meta. All right. Now this did come in. So that, this looked pretty strong earlier in the week, right? This is Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, but it stalled right at the top of value area. It kind of came in a little bit and consolidated and made a nice move here. The only thing that you have to worry about here is, and again, this set up for a nice little day trade, but it did take out that Virgin point of control. So Virgin point of controls, again, if you're not familiar with them, you could go to, there's a link in the video that will describe that. You could also go to the pinned tweet on my Twitter feed, and it will tell you all about value areas that you're looking at on the screen, as well as Virgin point of controls. But yes, sometimes you could see a reversion, just like you saw here, right? We took this out and went higher. You could also see some price digestion. Price can get over them, but it becomes a battle of new buyers and overhead supply sellers, right? So that's something to watch in Meta. Tesla also acted well today. Again, not anything, just a huge movement, but and this is what it did on the open. Right, I believe this was, oh no, that was earlier in the week. Sorry, I've got the 1 hour chart up, but again, it's kind of a little bit sketchy, right? Moves in a little bit, right? Moves higher, so again, it managed to resolve higher for the day, but it seems this is tough. This is tough price action. But if you hung with it, it stayed up 1.7%. I mentioned the solar group. I really like this ARRY. Right, I think that this had a really nice check back. You've heard me talk about this earlier in the week. This gave a nice check back to the top of value, and look at what it's done since. And this looks great. Trying to break this range, right? Some people, especially in this market, they're like, "Oh, geez, I'll sell it when it gets to the top of the range." Well, that's possible because there's been a lot of names that have been stalling at the breakout area. But if you zoom out and you look at the if you look at the weekly chart here, right, this thing may just be starting to get going, right? Getting out of this consolidation basically for the whole year. And maybe this starts to really kind of move itself higher. Again, much better acting than some of its peers, right? For example, here's what the whole solar ETF looks like, right? Not good, right? I always go long the name that's showing the strength or the relative strength, not the ones that are showing the weakness. All right, so I find that interesting. And then last name that we'll look at is Celsius, right? Now, of course, this thing is pretty extended on the weekly chart, and you could see but it's been consolidating here. Which way is it going to break? And when we look at when I talk about which way is it going to break, I'm going to show you the 1 hour chart. There was a broke Cohen, just slapped a $250 price target on it after hours, but this is what's really nice, because you look at those other time frames and you're like, geez, I don't really see a trade. But you look at the 1 hour chart and you could see that this has been going sideways basically for the last 2 weeks, right? Consolidating a little bit. It tried to go higher just the other day and it failed, right? Where did it fail? Right at the top of value. So set your alert to 204 and see if it can begin to kind of break and go to the next leg higher. How much higher does it have in it? That I don't know, but that's why you use trading stops, right? That's why you have a stop in every trade. But we want trades that are going to trend. And I would love to see this break 204.35. And again, where if you're in a long, which I am in a long, and I've been in a long now for a couple weeks, I'm just in the last piece of a trade. But if it breaks 197 decisively, I'm out of the resulting trade. That's it. Right? Take your emotion out of the equation, right? Long above 204, short 197.50 if you want to play that game. Now, if it doesn't break by tomorrow, notice how slim the value area is for next week, right? Super slim. So I think that this thing is going to start to move and get out of this range. If I don't know for tomorrow, but I think next week has a good chance to do that. So I think that is a must-watch stock. So I mentioned some strategy. So what I would say with this price action is, I mean, from a day-to-day, it's been impossible to and that's always the case, trying to predict markets on a day-to-day basis. But I think right now it's really, really difficult. There just hasn't been a lot of consistency. So, these are great days to be selling a little bit into strength. And I think this market's been a bit easier. September first of all, September has not been easy. August was not easy. But these markets have been a little bit easier when you have less positions on, right? There's been too many names, as I talked about in yesterday's video, where all of a sudden, boom, you start the day and names are down 4%, right? So I mean, that's difficult to overcome when you've got one or two of those names that are doing that. And if you look at some of the software names for today, here's my watch list that I compile over the weekend, and then of course I add to names as we go through the week. And again, it's just that it's a watch list. But look at how many names today. I mentioned how many sectors were. Almost every sector was green today. But Netflix was down 2.9%. Fastly was down 3%. These are names that people have been watching. Monday, which I have on the list in here too, was also down on the day. IoT was down 1% on the day. So again, it's a reminder. Like, I really put a lot of software names on my watch list this week. That doesn't mean I'm going to take them all, but I'm going to be watching them. Okta, which has been a strong name, was down 1.6%. GTLB, which I think got a nice price target raise or by a broker earlier in the week, was down 2%. So a lot of these high momentum names, are not performing that great. INOQ was down 3.5%, right? And it's a reminder too that there are other areas of the market besides high growth software names, right? It's okay. Like, I try to basically find one software name or one high growth name, but just to think that you're going to have 5 or 6 names in that group that are all going to do well is a really unreasonable expectations, I think, to have, especially when you're dealing with the Fed, who has yanked rates up over 5%, right? We're not in a so let me preface this question. If you are only looking at 5 or 6 high software, high growth, high multiple software names, high growth names, Do you think that we're in a zero interest rate environment, or do you think that we're, you know, that there are more headwinds with a stronger dollar, higher interest rates? You know, I don't know why people would think that that formula is going to work for major outperformance. You have to, in my opinion, you have to mix it up right now with this market. But at the same point, right, understand what the market is doing right now, which is being pretty inconsistent. And I'll leave on a positive note. Right, the Qs, let's see if they can stay above. They've been above the value area a couple times this month. That level is 375.29. Every time we get above it so far this month, we've gone right back inside the value area. So maybe the 1, 2, third time is the charm. We'll see. But again, if we go back inside the value area 375.29, then you have to know that the momentum is not there. All right. That's it for today's video. Again, I will come out with, I mentioned this in yesterday's video that I will come out with, we're coming out with a new platform at Tribeca Trade Group, and I will give you some more details about that tomorrow. Stay tuned. Have a great night, everybody.